Shortly we'll be crossing to Victoria for the latest on the floods, but first to Queensland. 1 in 18 people there has now received a flood assistance payment, and today the Premier Anna Bligh said the government had to consider all issues in order to better cope with floods in the future. Last week the city of Toowoomba witnessed deadly flash flooding. The local council is now defending its past mitigation efforts, but questions are being asked if too much emphasis has been placed on development and not enough on living safely with water. John Taylor reports from Toowoomba.
It's a peaceful sunny day in downtown Toowoomba. But just over a week ago, on this very spot, the heart of one of Australia's largest inland cities turned into a nightmare.
A landslide of water that was just coming down streets, off parks, overland, from every direction, water.
Amateur Vision reveals how the residents of Toowoomba were caught by surprise. The city is about 700 metres above sea level, but was waterlogged from weeks of rain when 160 millimetres was dumped in 30 minutes. The result was chaos.
Oh my goodness.
I think we thought we were infallible. The land didn't matter. We were way too clever. We had, we could tweet, we could email, we were very clever, we could fly through the skies. We forgot we had to coexist by living on the land.
Heather Brown is a long-time journalist, now farmer and thoroughbred breeder on the outskirts of Toowoomba. After the flash flooding, she examined Toowoomba's East Creek and West Creek to try and understand why this flood was so devastating compared with others in the past.
There were farms, and there were paddocks, and there were trees, and more importantly, there was dirt. And that absorbed the water. Today we have bitumen, we have cement, and we have colorbond fences everywhere. So what's causing the darkness, Mike?
She believes an extreme weather event was made worse by poor planning.
I think if you walk down the creeks and have a look at the creeks, what's happened to the creeks, they've created a funnel effect. Those, right back in the headwaters, there's been serious mitigation put in place. We've put some dams and lakes in to try and slow the flow down as it comes downhill. But I think when you start to come closer, they've done some really silly things historically, like bending the shape of the creek and putting in little English bridges, toilet blocks in front, and constantly it was being funnelled under and under the road.
The community generally is listening to armchair experts that really don't have expertise, where we've got qualified people that have actually designed good systems. This tells us why it happened.
Peter Taylor is the Mayor of the Toowoomba Regional Council. He believes his community is the victim of extreme weather.
This is not a matter of the infrastructure or development. It's got nothing to do with that. The impacts we're seeing here, that's been graphically shown around the world, are the impacts of absolute severe event. Unprecedented weather, torrential tropical downpours.
I'm a citizen of this town who just honestly believes that a mother and her children has the right to go to a shop in safety, or at least with warnings to know of any risk.
Let us think of Donna and Jordan's goodness.
Toowoomba yesterday buried its flash flood victims. Hundreds of people attended the funeral of mother Donna Rice and her 13-year-old son Justin, who were washed from the roof of their car. Another son, Blake, was rescued.
All I can do is thank you both. Tell anyone to listen just how much I love you both. And how special you are. Godspeed, my little angels.
The physical reminders of Toowoomba's flash flood are fast disappearing. Only last week, this was a raging river.
This is what we've seen on international television and around the world, where cars going upside down through this creek.
Wow. For the Toowoomba Mayor, this site is also proof of good planning undertaken by the council for many years.
Making improvements to the drainage right throughout the city and following a plan designed by engineers, it did work. It worked, but it worked for a 1 in 100-year event, not a 1 in 500-year event.
This is one of the flood detention basins that council has built upstream of the CBD on both East and West Creek.
Kevin Flanagan is the council's Director of Water Services and has helped over many years to create a system designed to take into account Toowoomba's environment and history. He can't change where historic buildings were built close to the creeks in the city heart, so the strategy has been to help water through the CBD by using so-called detention basins upstream.
I'd suggest if these detention basins weren't here in the shape they were, and they all stood up and worked fairly well, there would have been a much bigger flood in the CBD.
My first thought was actually, of all things, Black Saturday in many ways, because I thought that there's a whole series of events that came together, which is a storm which actually moved right up the catchment, secondly a catchment which is basically saturated and effectively well overdeveloped, once I overdeveloped, but a developed catchment, and as a result a lot of runoff which really had to go somewhere.
Dr Jerry Maroulis works in Toowoomba with an environmental consultancy involved in mine site rehabilitation. He's an expert in how water moves over the environment, and he believes drainage is often not given enough emphasis when developments are approved.
I think sometimes nature can be a sleeping giant in some respects, and this is an example where the power of water was unleashed on an urban environment and the consequences were strongly felt.
What happened in Toowoomba and why, and what might prevent it in the future, will be examined by Queensland's Commission of Inquiry. What's certain is that the city was caught by surprise and 2 people died.
You can't build for 1 in 500 years. The event is so extreme that detention basins would fill the whole city. What will we do? Relocate the city?
I just think maybe it's a clarion call, John. Maybe it's a wake-up call for communities, for individuals, to say perhaps we need to change a little bit how we live and how we view things.
John Taylor reporting from Toowoomba.